Hello, this is Jennifer Marshall again. Today is day 3 of our gluten-free sourdough starter. If you've been following my videos for the past 2 days, I have been trying to make a gluten-free sourdough starter, showing you kind of a step-by-step process using quite nice flours. They're nice flours that we can all find from the local grocery store, very easy to find and also very easy to work with. And also they're kind of mainstream, they're rice flour and buckwheat. And today I'm on day 3. I've been basically leaving my starter. I haven't even been looking at it until I come and record the video. So it's kind of like I'm trying to be as authentic as possible. I'm keeping it covered and I'm leaving it for 24 hours, keeping it covered in my pantry. And our temperature, our ambient temperature, even in our house, is actually getting warmer. So if I had to do this starter in the winter and if our house was colder or cooler, it would perhaps take even longer to make. As soon as I took off the cloth today, I noticed that there is a dome shape texture on the top of my starter. So this is basically what we're looking for, is this dome shape. However, if you don't get it, don't worry, it's fine. I mean, we're still day 3. It's just that my ambient temperature is warmer, so kind of surprisingly, I'm already getting a lot of activity in my starter. The other thing that I'm looking for in the starter to see whether there's any microbe activity, microbe activity sounds like very scientific, is all these bubbles on the side. So it is kind of air bubbles on the side, which shows that there's been a lot of movement, a lot of activity. So I'm looking for air bubbles. I'm looking for kind of air pockets. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but I'm going to bring it closer to the camera just to see it. So all these air pockets that you can see on the side are really, really good sign. And this is a buckwheat. To be honest with you, I really thought that it's going to take me longer to get activity because I find that buckwheat is a heavier flour and it takes longer normally to get active. However, my feeling is, well, I'm quite sure that this is the case, is that my pantry is warm. And therefore, since it's microbes love warmth, and this I will keep on stressing throughout this whole series of videos, microbes like warmth. And so even if you're making a normal wheat starter, it's the same principle. Microbes love warmth. And the warmer the ambient temperature is for them, the more they're going to get active. So it's kind of, they like sort of a nice heat. I'm going to speak to you a little bit about the different types of heats that you can help. You can, for example, place your sourdough starter, for example, in an oven with the pilot lamp switched on, and that pilot lamp gives enough soft heat to create and help create activity. You can, for example, I have had a client who actually did a course with me. She had a hot water bottle and wrapped various cloths around the starter just to create that kind of lovely warmth in the starter. Another person who did the course with me left it under a study lamp. She said that by having it right under the study lamp, it created that kind of warmth. And there are so many other ideas. For example, you can place it in a microwave, or for example in an oven, and place a pot next to it with a boiling water next to it, so the steam will generate that kind of heat. So these are kind of little ideas. I know that probably there are so many other hundreds of ideas that you know your house best. So you have to kind of improvise as to what is the best place where you can place your starter and give it that extra little bit of heat. I know some people, one person who did the course with me, she wrapped the starter in blankets. She said, this is like my little puppy. So these are kind of little ideas. So today I'm seeing quite a lot of activity. What I'll be doing, and since it's really actually come to the top of my jar, I am going to place it in a new jar and I'm going to take some of it. What's left over, I unfortunately cannot use. So the first few discards, we call them discards because they're leftover, we cannot use them. You know, there are so many recipes we can use with the leftover. It's just that in the beginning, unfortunately, the discard has no nutritional value at all. And unfortunately, we have to throw it away. And so this is kind of part of the process of fermentation until we get a very active fermented sourdough starter. So I am going to basically take, it's very important, the scales, very, very important to have scales. So everything is well measured. I'm going to take the scales and I'm going to take a clean spoon and take 100 grams of my sourdough starter. That's, to me, it's already looking, there's already activity in it, so I'm expecting to have even more activity by tomorrow. However, having said this, sometimes a starter can dip in activity. What's happening at the moment is that there is a lot of, the starter is finding its way. The microbes are kind of finding a way to settle to a routine, to settle to the feeding, and to settle to the ambient temperature. So don't be too surprised if you get a big volume of starter and then suddenly it dips in its volume the following day. It's just that you cannot give up. Don't give up. Keep on discarding, like I'm going to show you right now, and feeding. Discard and feed. Don't give up. Keep on feeding until finally, at one point, you will get really, really good activity. As soon as you give up, then, you know, it's like all the effort that you've done is for nothing, which is not worth it. Gluten-free flours are incredibly expensive, as we all know, and it is very important to be persistent. So I'm going to take 100 grams of my sourdough starter from here, and I'm going to place it in a clean jar. I've got my scales already switched on to 0 grams, so I know how much I'm going to take. And as you can see, I'm going to lift the starter to show you what I get. It's sort of like a bit cakey almost, which is really funny. And I will place 100 grams to my starter here. And it's quite liquidy at the bottom, so actually it would be a good idea to give it a bit of a mix. Actually, I should have done this before, but I didn't. It's fine. And the bottom part, in fact, this is all fermentation. You see, what happens with fermentation is you get so many different types of textures. It's amazing. Over time, the texture changes. So I'm going to make sure I take 100 grams of my starter here. And here we are. Good. And unfortunately, this will have to be thrown away. There is nothing, no nutritional value for this. I really cannot use it. It's not going to do any, it's just the way it is. The first few discards we really can't use. However, as soon as I get my starter active and happy and strong, I will start using my discard to make crackers, to make cakes, to make pancakes, to make so many things, so many possibilities, so to make chocolate cookies, to make pasta even. One of my courses that I'm going to be doing on the 13th of March, we are going to be doing a gluten-free sourdough pasta using a discard and gluten-free sourdough pastry using also a discard. So we'll be using 2 recipes whereby we'll be using the discard, and we'll be using 2 recipes for the pizza and the sourdough soft sandwich bread, where we'll be using the active starter. So it's nice to have that balance and to know what to do with the discard as well. Okay, so 100 grams of my sourdough starter goes in there, and I'm going to mix it today with 50 grams of buckwheat flour and another 50 grams of white rice flour. And then we kind of follow a similar pattern. We add 100 grams of water. This is filtered water, and actually mine is bottled water, and that's the best thing to do, to use a really, really good water as well, so that there's nothing that's killing the microbes. And tepid water, shouldn't be too cold, shouldn't be too hot. And just mix it in, 100 grams. I prepared it earlier. And yeah, give it a good mix. Make sure that all the flour has been well incorporated, that there's no flour that's lumpy or anything like that. Make sure that your mix is nice, that it's really nicely mixed. And again, the final texture should be similar to that of mud-like texture. As I said it, I think yesterday and the day before, or else like a thick yogurt is the best way I can explain it really. Because with fermentation over the next 24 hours, the texture is going to change tremendously. You will get, again, the liquid, it might go more liquidy, the bubbles will come in and so on. Microbes will start working away and so many things are happening. So that's what we need at the moment, with our sort of natural yeast to break down and for our microbes to really, really multiply and eat away, basically. So here we go. So I have kind of it's quite thick mud for me today, but the measurements are correct. So I'm keeping it as it is. It is not too thick, but slightly thicker than yesterday, I have to say. That's it, basically. And I try, again, not to use my fingers, or I try and keep it sort of as sterilized as possible so that I don't mix any of my own microbes, basically, in there. So I keep it sterilized. That's it, basically. Then what I'll do is I'll just let it to sit for 24 hours. And the one thing I wanted to say is this. It would be a good idea, since I have already activity in my sourdough starter, it's a good idea to kind of mark where your sourdough starter is sitting at this point. So my starter is sitting at this point. So I'm going to place a rubber band so that when I next come to look at my starter, which is basically in 24 hours, I can see whether there's been any volume activity, volume increase. And that's kind of important for me, because seeing volume increase means that there is microbial activity, and it means that my starter is getting stronger and stronger. So it's kind of nice, it's good even for us to get used to the idea, to know at where your sourdough starter is sitting when newly mixed, to where the volume increase has happened, and to see how much volume has increase in the starter, because that's what's happening. You get a volume increase, which means it's at that point that you can use it for making bread and so on. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to it, and I'll come back on tomorrow to show you day 4 of sourdough starter, how my starter is doing. Take care.